সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন অনলি ইসলামিক মিডিয়া নতুন নতুন গজল কেরাত ও আজান পেতে।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম ফ্রেন্ডস, অনলি ইসলামিক মিডিয়া ইউটিউব চ্যানেলে জানাই আপনাদের স্বাগতম। আপনারা শুনতে চলেছেন আজকের টপিক, ইসলামের বিশ্ব শত্রু ইহুদি, এদের কিছু ইতিহাস। তো চলুন বন্ধুরা শুনে আসা যাক আজকের টপিক, ইসলামের বিশ্ব শত্রু ইহুদিদের ইতিহাস। প্রিয় বন্ধুরা, আমাদের চ্যানেল যদি ভালো লাগে তাহলে অবশ্যই আমাদের চ্যানেলটাকে সাবস্ক্রাইব করবেন। খোদা হাফেজ।
The Jews in history are a violent race in history. Jews have been reckless and violent since prehistoric times. Torture, attack, anger towards other religions has been prevailing in their minds since the beginning of time. The history of plots, conspiracies, and misdeeds of the Jews as a nation in the heart of the world is well known. In the Quran Karim, they are identified as a cursed and humiliated nation. Their mentality is disgusting. They also have an identity as Chara Sudkor and Danlipsu caste. This barbaric race has been hated by people for their apostasy, blasphemy, and their evil activities for ages. They have perpetuated their own existence through the ages over others. The most remarkable aspect of the Jewish people and Judaism throughout its history of nearly 4,000 years has been its adaptation and continuity. From ancient Egypt or the Babylonian Empire, Judaism has had to interact with modern Western Christian populations and modern secular groups. A number of things from each group and ideology have been added to the Jewish socio-religious structure, but their ancient traditions have never been undermined. Almighty Allah says, "Insults and humiliation have been imposed on them. They wandered under the light of Allah, because they disbelieved in the law of Allah and killed the prophets unjustly, because they were disobedient and transgressors." Surah Baqarah, verse 61. Jewish nomenclature and early history of the Jewish nation. The descendants of Hazrat Yaqub, A.S., the son of Hazrat Ishaq, A.S., are known as Bani Israel. Bani Israel is a branch of the descendants of Ibrahim, A.S., who was specially favored by Allah. A part of this branch later identified themselves as Jews. One of the sons of Hazrat Yaqub, AIS, was Yehuda. The name Jew was derived from that part of the name. Tafsir Mawardi, 131. Hazrat Musa, ourselves, suffered the most from the misdeeds and historical punishments of the Jews throughout the ages 2,500 years ago. The Jews of the ancient world considered themselves the superior nation, the Bani Yisrael, nurtured in the tradition of monotheistic religion. Their main religious book, Torah, was divided into several chapters, namely Pedayesh, Hijrat, Leviticus, Numbers, etc. The passages of stories of the prophets of the Torah were, respectively, Yusha, Kazi, Ruth, Samuel, Kings, Kandanama, Uzair, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Zabur Sharif, Mesal, Guide, Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Eunice, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, etc. In addition, the history of the world, creation, Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden, Abel, Cain, Shis, and his descendants, Noah, Ham, Sam, the birth of language, Babylon, the first fathers of Israel, Abraham, Lot, Hagar, and Sarah, Abimelech, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Pharaoh, Judah, Bani Israel, Moses, and Isaiah the prophet, Jeremiah, Ehiskel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Micah, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi, events in Egypt, imams, sacrifice, Eid, rest, vows, Mount Tur, census, etc., were subsections. Apart from the Torah, the Jews also considered the Psalms as an ancient religious book. There are 150 religious songs in the Psalms, which were composed around 1000 BC. According to them, 73 of them were authored by Dawood Nabi himself. Apart from this, Asaph composed 12 songs, Karun's son 10 songs, Solomon Nabi 2 songs, Musa 1 song, Ethan 1 song, and Uzair Nabi 1 song. The exhortations of Solomon, Hezekiah, Agur, and King Lemuel were known and read by the Jewish people as the Masal, which later Christians recorded in the Bible as the Old Testament. In fact, the Bible was a combination of the New and Old Testaments, as well as the history of Judaism and the life story of Jesus. The Jews accused the holy and chaste woman of adultery. They slandered Jesus, A.S., who is the product of Maryam's adultery and thereby wants to show that Jesus, as, is not fit to be a prophet or guide. And on the basis of this slander, the Jews refused to accept Jesus, A.S., as a prophet. They are Hazrat Jesus, A.S. He did not stop at propagating such vile slander about him, even conspiring to kill him. The fact that the Jewish conspirators were able to kill him is also subject to a kind of puzzlement or misconception. And on the basis of that killing, they expressed great pride and arrogance and said, "We killed Jesus." But Almighty Allah says in the Quran that in fact they killed a person who looked like Jesus, and they did it because of deception or suspicion. It is described in detail in many places in the Quran. At the beginning of Surah Baqarah, Allah's mercy on the Jewish nation and about 12 evil deeds and their punishment by Allah are described. After Allah saved them from the Pharaoh of Egypt, Moses, A.S., when they went to Mount Tur to bring the Torah from God, they started worshipping the cow's calf. After Allah forgave them for their punishment, they again sat earnestly to see Allah with their own eyes. For this, they were threatened with punishment by raising the mountain of Tur through the angels. They were ungrateful and refused to eat natural food after the dua of Musa, A.S. Sometimes they accuse Musa, A.S., of bad illness and adultery. Thus, Hazrat Musa, A.S., suffered with them for a lifetime. Hazrat Ilyas, A.S., started a movement against the idolatry of the Jews. Not only did he suffer persecution to the displeasure of the Jews, they also sought to kill him. Finally, an Egyptian emperor attacked them and killed and plundered them. Then the situation improved slightly. After that, if they were involved in misdeeds again, they were punished by the Babylonian emperor. The emperor attacked Baitul Maqdis and destroyed the Aqsa Mosque. The city was ravaged by massacre and plunder. The Jews were then exiled from Bait al-Maqdis to Babylon. There he spent 70 years in extreme humiliation and misery. Then an Iranian emperor captured Babylon and took mercy on the Jews and brought them back to Syria. At this time they built the Aqsa Mosque again. Then 170 years before the birth of Jesus, A.S., when they indulged in sin again, the emperor of Antioch attacked them and killed 40,000 and imprisoned 40,000. The emperor also insulted Aqsa in the mosque. Many years later, when Baitul Maqdis was taken over by the Roman emperor, he helped the Jews. The core teachings of Judaism have almost always revolved around monotheism. Although there are many classes and subclasses among the Jews, no one disagrees on this one point. Everyone accepts only one God. Monotheism actually implies a universal religion, though with some particularism associated with it. In ancient Israel, this individualism took the form of election. Election refers to God's choosing someone from among the people as his representative. From that time, the Jews believed that there must be a premeditated covenant between God and man. All shall abide by this agreement. If you don't, you will face severe punishment in the hereafter. Messianism blended beautifully with this Jewish thinking.
Today the Jews are in the second stage of their subversive activities and chaos and at the peak of supremacy and supremacy. We have now entered the beginning of our divine authority and dominion, and we are about to expose their ugly face at the time when Almighty Allah will make us victorious over them. Just as our forefathers entered Masjid al-Aqsa for the first time and crushed their pride and supremacy on earth, so we will enter Masjid al-Aqsa before or with the advent of Imam Mahdi, A.S., and destroy their dominance, pride and superiority.